Hey there, I'm Brandon Pipkin. I'm an abuse coach and I help people deal with toxic situations. Today, I want to share with you 3 important tips for dealing with toxic family members during the holidays. So, it's the holiday season, which means that we should be celebrating what ought to be good times with family and friends over the next couple of months. But unfortunately, for so many people, the holidays represent a time of dread because we know what awaits us. Family members who are difficult to deal with. And I'm not just talking about your uncle who's a little odd or your aunt who gets a little bit too tipsy. No, I'm talking about toxic people who seem to have this magical ability to ruin any family gathering. Toxic family members who make everybody else around them uncomfortable at some point because they seem to not understand social clues and they're too stubborn to see, or they just don't even care about the chaos that they're creating around them. Sometimes this person is unfortunately closer to us than our extended family members. It might be our mom, our dad, our brother or sister, or maybe even our significant other. So if you're one of those who is dreading the holiday season because of the presence of a toxic family member, let me give you 3 tips to keep in mind to help you deal with them and keep you emotionally safe during what should be a festive and joyful time of year. Number 1, do not engage. I can't stress this one enough. So often when we feel attacked or we see something happening that we don't like, we feel obligated to defend ourselves against it or to justify what happened or to apologize for things that aren't our fault or to respond in some other way to try to engage and fix the situation. But here's the thing. Toxic people, they thrive on drama that they create. So this feeds their fire. Drama and chaos are their way of controlling a situation and then later on being able to play the victim if they need to be. The best way to control a situation is to create it. And toxic people subconsciously know that. That's why they say or do things that get a reaction from you. When you react, it signals to that toxic person that you're willing to play along with their game and that they get to call the shots. It signals that you're an actor on their stage willing to take your cues from them. So when they start up with crazy, just don't engage. If grandma asks if you're still with that guy who's a loser, who may actually be right there with you, just smile and change the subject. Or simply say, nope, I'm dating a wonderful man, and then start talking to somebody else immediately. Or when they ask if you dropped out of college because you couldn't pass that easy class, just smile and say, no, and then leave their presence. Seriously. And if you know if you know their likelihood and their pattern that they'll probably be confrontational or they'll say something offensive, stop feeling obligated to be nice in the first place and simply avoid them altogether. Tip number 2, remember, other people are responsible for their own behavior. Don't take any of their attacks or behaviors personally. As Don Miguel Ruiz points out in his book, The 4 Agreements, how somebody acts and reacts is a reflection of their experience in life. You don't own it, so stop taking responsibility for it. If you really did control another person's actions, you could tell them what to wear, when to start something, when to stop something, when to eat, with whom to speak, etc., and they would listen to you. No questions asked. Right? I mean, it's kind of absurd when you think about it in that context. But I get it. In the moment, it's really confusing with a toxic person because they're so good at twisting situations and blaming their bad behavior on you. One of the biggest lies toxic people perpetuate is that others are in some way responsible for their behavior. You provoked them. They're just concerned about you. Oh, you misunderstood what they meant. Or they were just joking and you took offense to it. Don't buy their lies. You're not responsible for their behavior, their actions, or their reactions. Tip number 3, know your boundaries. So this one ties into the previous 2 points of don't engage and letting other people own their own behavior. From my experience as a coach helping others through toxic situations, it's very clear to me that boundaries are misunderstood. And if we understood them, they could change our lives. So many of the people I talk to, they say, well, I set a boundary and the other person just blows right past it. They don't even respect it. And I say, exactly. That's why you have got to get clear on what your boundary is and what you will do when someone crosses it. Because you see, boundaries aren't about controlling the other person. It's not about making them respect your boundary or making them do something or not do something. Boundaries are all about getting crystal clear on what behavior you're willing to accept from other people and what behavior you're not willing to accept from other people. It's understanding with great clarity what you will tolerate and what you will not tolerate. It's making the decision of what to do and how to act. So as an example, let's say it's your mom or maybe even significant other who always starts a fight at the dinner table by saying something negative about you, your choices, or someone else there, or just some other derogatory or insulting thing. Before you head to the big celebration with your pies in hand, you want to know for certainty what you're going to say or do if this person starts in with their stuff while everyone is eating the stuffing. So maybe you're going to get up from the table right then and there and move to a different spot and continue your meal. Maybe you're going to kindly request that they stop. And if they don't, you get up and you leave and you make them find their own way home if you came together. I'll say a little bit more about that in just a second. Maybe you're going to look at them with a blank stare, long enough for them to understand you're not responding, and then you talk to somebody else. If you're clear beforehand that this is behavior that you're not going to accept, you can get clear on what you'll say or do if and when it happens. And then it doesn't catch you off guard. You're not surprised by it. In fact, you may even want to make a kind, honest, and reasonable request before the big shindig by saying something like this. Hey, I'd like to ask you not to bring up any of my personal business, or whatever the issue is, during our get-together today. And that's it. A kind, honest, and reasonable request. Now, do you control whether or not the other person decides to honor it? Nope. As part of this life, they get to make their choices and you get to make yours. So be clear on what your boundaries are and what your choices are so that when they blow past the boundary, and let's face it, toxic people always do, you will feel comfortable taking the action you need to protect yourself from their toxic behaviors. Now let's go back to that option of leaving and making the other person find their own way home. At least one of you watching the video thought to yourself, well, I don't want to add to the drama and create a scene. And at least one other person thought to themselves, well, I'm going to get punished if I do that. When they get home, I'll be in big trouble. Well, if either one of those is the case, I want you to really ponder what's happening in your relationship and how comfortable you are with it. If you need some help clearly seeing what's happening in your relationship, I've got a questionnaire on my website that can help you get some clarity around that. So if you think it's adding to the drama to separate yourself from that person and make them responsible for their own behavior, or if you know that you're going to face retribution, this questionnaire can help shed some light on what's really happening. So that's it. Those are the 3 important tips for dealing with toxic family members during the holidays. Number 1, don't engage. Number 2, remember you're only responsible for your own behavior. And number 3, boundaries. And of course, keep in mind, toxic people need control, as I mentioned, so the likelihood of them creating drama to get the control and effectively ruining the holiday for everybody else is pretty high. So be prepared for it. Stay safe and protect yourself from toxic people. Happy holidays.